Hello everyone! Today I am going to be making this layered resin painting of the Little Prince. So let's get started. I start out with an untreated pine board, which I then cover with black acrylic paint. And once that is dry, I will simply tape around all of the sides with this packing tape. Since that didn't get quite the seal that I was looking for, I decided to go over the very bottom with another piece of cellophane tape. I would have used this on the sides, but it's pretty thin, so it tends to tear a lot when I try to remove it, so I stick with thicker tapes for the sides. The resin I'm using for this project is Envirotex Light Pour-On Resin, which is a 2-part epoxy resin. All you have to do is mix together equal amounts of resin and hardener. Since I tend to get a lot of air bubbles when I am mixing my resin, I go back in with this embossing heat tool to pop all of those bubbles. Now that we have everything prepared, it is time to pour the first layer of resin. I mixed up way more resin than I actually needed for this project because I am working on 3 of these paintings at once. I continue using the heat tool to pop the bubbles and also make the resin flow really well. As you can see, all I have to do is tilt the piece to get the resin to flow to all the corners. I'm then going in with alcohol ink and adding in some subtle color to the background. You don't see it a lot to begin with, but once the piece is finished and fully cured, you will be able to tilt it and see all of those different colors. I'm then going to sprinkle on some of this glow-in-the-dark dust. It's more like really gritty sand. Some of these metal flakes. And finally, this galaxy glitter. All of these will give us the impression of stars in the background. I leave the first layer to cure overnight, and now it's time for painting. And yes, I used a cheat for my circle, because I cannot paint a perfect circle to save my life. I'm going to be going back in with this glow-in-the-dark paint and highlighting some of the areas where the light is reflecting off of the moon. I also go in and paint some other planets and stars with this glow-in-the-dark paint mixed with white. Now it's time to start painting the Little Prince. I think I took a little bit more inspiration from the film rather than the book illustrations, mainly because I just love all of that stop motion paper animation, and I really loved how stylized it was. Now, as you can see, it does take a couple layers to actually build up some opaque color because paint doesn't really like to adhere to smooth, glossy resin. Now you could sand it in order to get the paint to stick better, but I tend to not do that because I am afraid of damaging the previous layer. I just have to be very patient with it and allow every thin layer to dry completely before I go back in and add more color. Now the good thing about painting on glossy resin is that if you make a mistake and you are painting with this craft acrylic paint, it actually scrapes off relatively easily. So you can go in, I usually take a toothpick, and I just scrape away little by little until I get the edge that I really wanted, or until I remove something that I didn't want in there to begin with. Now it's time for our second layer of resin. I just mixed that up exactly like the first layer. Now I wanted to add some interest to this second layer, so I pour a little bit of resin into a small cup. And into that I'm going to be mixing this Pearl X powder, which is really great for coloring resin. And then I'm just going to take my toothpick and swirl it over the surface. I'm kind of going for a kind of smoky galaxy cloud looking Milky Way thing. And in order to get that to spread out more and get some nice texture and cells to it, I will heat it up with this embossing heat tool again. And the more you heat it, the more cells will form. Then I take this shaped glitter and I add it to the piece to kind of look like rose petals. And just a little more glitter. You can never have enough glitter, but only in resin pieces. Everywhere else, it gets everywhere, and no, just no. Anyways, our piece is almost done now. So I'm just removing the tape, and this takes a while, but not when you have the magic of video editing. Ta-da! And in a well-ventilated area, I am going to sand off all of the rough spots and all the uneven sides, uneven edges, anything that shouldn't be there, anything that makes it not a smooth surface. Resin dust is a big irritant to the eyes, nose, lungs, skin, anything. And I have very sensitive skin, so I recommend well-ventilated area, face mask, gloves that come up to your elbows. If you have a respirator and a shop that's got a really good ventilation system and has one of those dust vacuum things, that is ideal. But I don't, so I make do with what I do have. And now we're ready for our last coat of resin. And here I've just mixed up a small batch of resin because I'm only going to be glazing this one piece. I also have the piece raised off of the work surface. I just put it on top of one of my silicone molds, but you can prop it up on top of some of these measuring cups that I use, or anything that raises it above the work surface and that you don't mind getting resin on. I just let that bad boy cure overnight, and then I have a finished piece. I'm really happy with how this piece turned out, and I'm very excited for the other two pieces I was working on. Hopefully you will be seeing those in some upcoming videos. And here's just a little demonstration of how it glows in the dark. In future, I will probably try a different brand of glow-in-the-dark paint, because this one isn't super bright. It doesn't even show up on camera, but trust me, there is a little bit of glow there. I hope you found this video helpful, and let me know if you try out some layered resin paintings of your own.